Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'd like to begin by showing you 3 objects that I brought with me today. I have a knife, a bottle of medication, and I have some rope. Can anyone guess what these 3 objects have in common? They are all 3 different ways that someone could end their own life. So today I'd like to talk about the lack of appropriate treatments for mental illnesses. I'm going to start with a story of a time that I saw someone attempt to end their own life. So I was driving home through downtown Pittsburgh and I saw a huge police presence on a bridge. There were at least 10 police cars, multiple ambulances, the whole bridge was lit up with lights. I went home and found through social media that a man was attempting to jump off the bridge. And about 2 hours later they reported that he did end his own life. I like to talk about mental illness and how we can help prevent events from happening just like that one. So what is mental health? It's our emotional and psychological well-being. It's how we self-regulate ourselves and how we calm ourselves down in stressful situations. It's how we cope with life events, make choices, interact with others. So what happens when you have a poor mental health? It could lead to a mental illness. What is a mental illness? Each mental illness has its own criteria through the DSM-5. So it explains what the mental illness is, how long it could last, what the onset is. For every person, it could last a different amount of time. It could vary from person to person, what their experience is like, but overall, each mental illness does have their own set of criteria. So what do mental illnesses do? What do they look like? What are some of the symptoms? So it could be a lack of control or focus. You could have a lot of anxiety. You could have compulsions, develop unhealthy coping skills. You could experience paranoia, bouts of mania, and you can also experience delusions and hallucinations. Some examples of disorders are generalized anxiety disorder, depression, OCD, PTSD, schizophrenia, ADHD. It's also important to know that these are specific disorders that come from groups of disorders. So you could have anxiety disorders, eating disorders, schizoaffective disorders. So there's multiple disorders under each category. Who do these affect? So nearly 1 in 7 people in the world have a mental illness, and this comes from the World Health Organization. I myself am one of those people. I have 3 mental disorders. It's common to have multiple disorders. I take medication for these, and I seek therapy. This is a chart from the University of St. Augustine in 2024. This shows the rates of mental illness in different races. So at the top we have mixed and multiracial. They have about 34.9% of mental illnesses. And in Asian, 16.4% in 2024 experienced a mental illness. So this shows that anyone from any background can experience a mental illness. So rates of suicide, approximately 1 death every 11 minutes occurs in the United States. This is about 130 people every day just in the US alone. Males make up 50% of the population, but they make up the majority of suicides, which is about 80%, and we think this is due to the use of guns. People ages 85 and older had the highest rate of suicide in 2023, and we think this is due to the fact that, they're older, maybe they want to end their own life. Maybe they're experiencing the loss of a loved one, or maybe their physical illnesses are too much to bear. And in young people, it is the second leading cause of death, those from ages 10 to 14, and it is the third leading cause of death in those 15 to 24. So this affects anyone from any gender, any age. It truly is an awful epidemic. Some demographics that are also at risk. So people in the military, they're experiencing stressful and traumatic events. So post-traumatic stress disorder, that's really common in people who are in the military. There's a lot of homeless people. They're very at risk. Drug use. Their brain is also always in survival mode. They're trying to figure out where they're going to sleep, where they're going to eat. Mental illness is very prevalent in those that are homeless. Those are disabilities as well. Mental illness can be a disability. Disabilities outside of mental health can cause mental health issues as well. Some solutions I propose to help with mental illnesses, I think it begins with education in schools. So if children are learning about what mental illnesses are, what do they look like, how do they present, I think it'll help them in the future to, maybe if they do have a mental illness, it'll help them, maybe it'll stop the progression of the illness, and it also can provide them with resources of how they can seek help. Government funding is crucial. There are so many people with mental illnesses. There are not enough facilities to house them. We need the funding to be able to get the resources, to pay the staff, to have the physical buildings to help those with mental illnesses. Government funding will also help with the better pay for staff. Keep the good staff that you want to have there. Have the hours available to staff these facilities as well. We often hear about a shortage in the health field. There's not enough nurses or doctors or just anyone per amount of people that are in these buildings. So we need the staff there to be able to help every single person. We also need empathetic staff. I currently work in a children's mental health hospital, and I work with staff that they just don't seem like they care. They don't want to do the groups that are helping the children gain these coping skills to deal with what they've been going through, to help prepare them to get back to life. I also want to see a reduce in cost of medication and counseling. We often hear about people who can't afford their medication, they can't afford to go to therapy. There are some specific disorders, such as schizophrenia, where you need to have that medication. It will progress, it will get worse, and it could lead to suicide. So we need everyone to be able to afford medication and to be afford to go talk to someone and receive counseling. In the presence of resources throughout the media, this could be through a hotline, this could be resources where you could go to in your area. We want to see these through television, social media, the newspaper. It could be a paper hanging up in your local grocery store. We want this to reach as many people as possible so that everyone has the resources they need to get better. Here's all my resources that I used for the information that I got for this presentation, such as the CDC, the World Health Organization. They were very helpful to me. Here are some resources that you can use if you're experiencing a mental illness or a mental health crisis. And together, let's work to improve the lack of treatment in mental illness. And I'd like to see a knife be for cutting your food, medication for helping your well-being, and a rope for tying up everyday objects. Thank you and have a great night.